Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Mr. Amitabh Kant, CEO of Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor Development Corporation. This is the most ambitious urbanization project that India is undertaking at this point in time. Welcome to our show, Mr. Kant.
Thank you.
Now this is a huge project which the cabinet cleared about 7-8 months ago, last October. Now 18,000 crores were allocated, and your mandate is to build some 24 cities over a distance of 1,500 kilometers between Delhi and Mumbai, which is a freight corridor, but along the corridor, industrial cities. Now, how are you imagining this massive project?
Yeah. I think it's very important for us to realize that it's a big challenge for India is to continue to grow at rates of 8 to 9% per annum for a long period.
Sure.
Now, if India has to do that, that means your manufacturing sector must grow at rates of 13 to 14% over the next 3 decades.
Yeah, that's a given. Yeah, historically, other countries
so manufacturing must become a key driver of both growth and employment creation.
Yeah.
Because vast segment of people will have to be provided employment. Now, the other key issue is that 350 million people are going to get into the urbanization process in the next 2 decades by 2030, and we'll have additional 700 million people getting into urbanization process by 2050.
Currently, we're 30% of our population is urbanized.
That's right. We'll go up to 70%.
Towards, 50-60%. Yeah.
So that's why, a leading thinker like C.K. Prahalad had said that actually India needs to create 500 new cities by the time it becomes 75 in 2022. Now, this project is a very large project. It's conceptualized as a very big project, but it's important when you're doing projects of this nature to break them up into doable concepts.
And get on to details also.
Detailing. So what we've done is we've broken the project in the first phase to 7 industrial cities passing through 6 states of India. We've finished the master planning of these 7 cities. We've broken these cities into doable projects, either commercially viable projects or non-commercially viable projects. And then we went to the government and we said that if you want to create 7 new industrial cities, you need to create the trunk infrastructure of these projects. And so government has in October 2011 approved an outlay of 18,500 crores for doing the trunk infrastructure. And the Japanese government has come up with 4.5 billion again for the trunk infrastructure, particularly transportation of these projects.
So you already have a total of about 40,000 crore if you take the Japanese loan and the government outlay.
The key is to have got the financing right for the first phase for the trunk infrastructure. I think,
and the trunk infrastructure would include drainage, sewerage, roads,
that's right,
and transport, right?
Yeah, that's right. To my mind, a new city cannot be created without good connectivity. It needs drainage, it needs sewage, it needs solid waste, it needs internal roads, and then that becomes the backbone. It needs a very good ICT backbone as well, information communication technology backbone as well, because what we are trying to do is to ensure that technology enables you to leapfrog the process of urbanization, because India has been a very, very reluctant urbanizer, and technology alone should make you leapfrog. So you have the initial resources for the trunk infrastructure. You need to do global scale of master planning, and you need to get into good program management, bring in good program managers. You can't, in new urbanization of this nature, you can't follow a traditional PWD, CPWD approach. So you need to bring in global scale of program managers, and you need to do some
or even the DLF Unitech approach. Unfortunately, we've had cities like Gurgaon which built without creating trunk infrastructure, as you just said.
So these are learning lessons for us. It's very important to understand that everything is not PPP-able. You can't have everything on private-public partnership. What the government must do is push the trunk infrastructure, and if once it does that,
after that you can invite the private sector.
So our financial structuring of this city, our financial analysis reveals that if you're able to do 35% of the trunk infrastructure, you are catalyzing the balance 60 to 65% of the projects on PPP-able basis.
Yeah.
And the key to the success of this project is that we should be able to monetize land values.
So after you do the 35%, the land also becomes that much more monetizable, right?
Absolutely. True. The key is that hitherto land monetization values on in close proximity to Delhi or to urban cities, wherever close urbanization has happened to metropolis cities, have been captured by the private sector. But what is important is that this has been done without creating adequate trunk infrastructure. So you create cities without transportation hubs, without drainage, without power, without water, and to my mind that's not a great example of
so you're saying that you can't do PPP on a clean slate. You have to first do the what the government has to do, that like creating sewerage, drainage, roads, etc.
So greenfield urbanization, especially in areas which are a little far away from metropolises, and to my mind it's important to develop areas where large amount of wasteland is available, where water resources are available, and then you need to provide good connectivity from there to both the dedicated freight corridor and to the existing passenger trains and to the national highways. Once you do that, that area with good connectivity takes off, but you need to provide the internal trunk infrastructure, and then the balance of the project becomes capable of commercialization.
So you're saying that we have not created so far any new city based on this principle that you just suggested. Have we done it so far? Is there any example of creating trunk infrastructure first and then moving on to inviting the private sector to do the PPPs?
Wherever they were created, actually government created the new cities, government created the new urbanization, but brought in private sector as it went along. But it did the initial trunk infrastructure, all great cities across the world. Now, in China, all the major cities have actually been driven by the government, by young mayors who've gone on, by creating new cities, they've gone on to rise up in the political hierarchy of the Chinese Communist parties.
So you've taken some lessons from there.
We've taken
Yeah, we will return to some of the finer aspects of what you're saying, but after a small break, and keep watching Rajya Sabha television. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with the CEO of Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor Development Corporation, Mr. Amitaba Kant. So, Mr. Kant, you were talking about how various examples that you've studied the world over and how the government does the first bit of developing the infrastructure, trunk infrastructure, as you said. Now in that light, how are you proceeding, as you said, in the details of the project? Have you acquired land? Are you in the process of acquiring land?
Well, to my mind, the key is that we've structured these projects on the basis of land being brought in by the state governments. And the government of India puts in the money for the trunk infrastructure.
So it's a state government and center
partnership project. And what the government of India does is to provide skills which are generally not available at the state level, is a global vision of bringing in the best master planners. So we brought in some of the finest master planners from across the world, some of the great companies which have created new cities across the world, CH2M, AECOM, Halcro, etc. have done the master planning. So they bring in the global vision, and then we bring in good program managers who will handhold the states to deliver projects on ground. And then we bring in detailed engineering companies so that we are able to do detailed engineering and take the program management and create trunk infrastructure of a very, very high quality and very high standard. And I think that really holds the key to taking infrastructure to another level in India.
And Which are the state governments that you're dealing with for this? Because this runs through Maharashtra, Gujarat.
So we deal with, the dedicated freight corridor, the western corridor starts at Dadri in Uttar Pradesh. So we deal with UP, then it passes through Haryana, it passes through Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Rajasthan. So we work with 6 states, of India, and these are 6 states which actually account for about close to 48% of India's GDP and close to about 50% of the total productive output in India.
So in a sense, this must be the, I guess, the first experiment of its kind. 6 states coming together in a joint venture with the center, and each city is like a special purpose vehicle.
That's right. So what we do is, this is a partnership project in many ways. So we work with our partners in the state. They bring in land and they work, actually we provide them master planners to the state government, and they work with the state governments. And in addition to this, the DMIC does several individual projects which cut across the states. So several water projects, several power projects, several logistic hub projects which cut across the states are driven directly by the DMICDs.
Okay. And the states are primarily responsible for acquiring land. I'm asking this because acquiring land is a bit of a controversial issue in recent times.
This is a key issue, and I believe, I strongly believe that over the years, states have innovated. They have innovated in both land acquisition and they've innovated in terms of rehabilitation policies, resettlement policies. So when I deal with 6 states, I find different strategies being pursued. I find Gujarat very active on the town planning. I find in Maharashtra, the MIDC has a very unique act called the MIDC Act, under which it acquires land on a negotiated basis. I find Haryana has an annuity model where it pays not merely the land value but pays annuity over a 30-year period. And I find in Rajasthan, when they acquired land for the World City, the Mahindra World City, they actually built houses. So the lower portion of the houses, the landowners stay, the upper portion they stay, and the lower portion they give it out for commercial purpose, which gives them revenue. So each state has built up its own genius of land acquisition in different states.
And it's working well?
Well, it's working very well. So my personal view is that we should leave it to the genius of each state to evolve and grow.
That's a very decentralized approach.
India is a very large country. It's bigger than 23 countries of Europe plus another 30,000 kilometers.
So you're not imposing your thoughts on them on how to acquire land, etc.
We've said that as per the master plan, you bring the land, and once you bring the land, we put in resources for the trunk infrastructure. So all the states have moved forward and they're close to cracking the first phase.
And I believe you are also giving, because the land, after you build the infrastructure, trunk infrastructure as it were, the land will become monetizable and values will go up. So you're also giving equity to the people who are giving up land? I read somewhere that you're giving some...
So we've again built up different models in different states in partnership with the state government. But one of the key things that we've done is that we've built up a very strong skill development program. And we've brought in some of the best skill developers, including GTZ of Germany. And our objective really is that we should be able to train every single person who's passed out of school, whose land has been taken, so that he's well equipped to get a job, not merely in the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, but anywhere else in the world. And this is what we are bringing to the table. Secondly, I think what the government of India brings to the table is really in terms of providing the big vision and good program management, etc., onto this table. So I think different innovative approaches have been pursued in different states.
So these approaches are now have resulted in already in acquisition of land.
So if you want
can you give me an idea of how much have you acquired?
So if you look at well, let's talk about the 7 cities.
7 cities.
Okay. So if you were to, let's start with Gujarat. If you were to look at the Dholera city, they are close to almost doing the last bit of town planning, which would get them almost 540 square kilometer of land. And 540. The master planning has been done for about 903 square kilometer, which actually makes it bigger than Singapore. Singapore is about 670 square kilometer. So this would be, this is actually the biggest a new urbanization process anywhere in the world. I mean, this is very large.
This would also, if successfully completed, the single biggest new city, industrial city in India, developed city in India?
Industrial city and anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world?
Anywhere in the world.
Okay.
If you look at Dighi port city, which we are developing, that's about 253 square kilometer.
Okay.
And there the MIDC by March next year would be close to getting about almost 60% of the land.
Okay.
And in Aurangabad, we are doing a smaller city, which is about 84 square kilometer.
Okay.
And then we are doing Pitampur Dharmao in Madhya Pradesh, which is an extension of the brownfield city. We come down to Rajasthan, where we are doing a larger version of Neemrana, 165 square kilometer, and then Manesa Bawal in Haryana, and Dadri, close to Dadri in UP. So all the states have moved forward at a fairly advanced stage.
Okay. Now we'll come back to this after a small break. Please don't go away and keep watching Rajya Sabha television. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Mr. Amitaba Kant, CEO of Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor Development Corporation. Now, tell me about some of the challenges that you are facing in terms of financing, in terms of anything else that you might want to talk about.
Well, it's a very complex project. It's a very difficult project, but it's a very satisfying project in many ways. And I think some of the key challenges. One is that, as I said, India is a very late starter in this process.
Absolutely.
One of the key challenges is that we should be able to use technology and embed that in the process of urbanization. What is increasingly being talked about by IBM as smart city concept, or Cisco as smart and connected city, or what the Koreans are calling as ubiquitous cities. Those concepts must become an integral part of the master planning process, so that you are able to control, manage, and provide land record services, education, health through the use of technology to the population in the coming years.
So you're saying that we should use this late start
to make a quantum jump
to get the latest technology.
And while we are a late starter, there are several advantages, and those advantages must be reaped in by India to make a big quantum jump through the use of technology. And it's possible. Digital technology enables you to do that. And that's why, in addition to the geographical master planning, we're using Cisco, IBM, several of these big players to do a ICT master planning, which will become a top layer of the master planning process itself. And that, I think, is the real value that we are adding. But I think the key challenges to this project are the challenges
of... Tell me about financing, Like, I believe per city would cost at least about 3,000 crores or something?
So a city today, if you were to look at the largest city, our analysis when we went to the cabinet was that each city would, given the size, geographical size, but the bigger cities would cost about close to 70 to 75,000 crores.
The bigger ones,
The bigger ones. But you need to break it up. And what you need to do is, in the phase one...
When you say 75,000 crores, this is to build the trunk infrastructure, etc.
So
you need to take it up to that point.
To take it up to that point. But the key is that if you are able, in the first phase, and if you are able to break that city into 3 distinct phases, and that's how all cities have happened across the world. In the first phase, if you are able to do the trunk infrastructure well, and what you need for the first phase of that city is close to about 3,000 crores. And if you're able to do that trunk infrastructure well, then the monetization of the land value enables you to keep getting revenue streams. Nobody builds a city in one go.
It's in phases.
It's in phases. So the first phase enables you to monetize land values, and then you keep putting it back into the next, the second, the third phase.
So that's when the private sector comes in, isn't it?
That's when the private.
So that's when you would invite the DLFs and others to start building.
All the big players.
All the big players start building.
Actually. So what happens really, if you were to do a financial analysis of a new city, which is what we try to do, is that a new city would break even, if you were to look at the whole city, would break even in the 12th or the 13th or the 14th year, given its size. But once it breaks even, the upsides are huge. So if you were to build a land monetization model...
So the government needs to support until those 12 years, 13 years, right?
And once you've reached the break-even level, then the upsides are so enormous and so high.
And the government itself will earn revenues, right?
It will earn revenue, and you can create this model. The upsides are so high that that the government can create many more cities with those upsides.
So are you suggesting, now from what you're suggesting, after 12 to 13 years, say by 20, maybe 25 or 27, these 5 states will get a whole lot of revenues coming from the monetization of this land, or even the center would get revenues, right?
So the model is that states which get into greenfield urbanization with Government of India putting in...
So will there be revenue upside for states, right?
Which put in, and if they are able to depoliticize land, and that is, to my mind, a key issue in India. Depoliticize land. If they're able to monetize land, and if they're able to capture the upsides, these states will be able to create a model of new urbanization.
But how do you depoliticize? It's a big challenge.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. But the only way to do it, to my mind, is where the center and
by politicizing it actually in a more structured way.
So my view on this is that if you are able to create a very good strong SPV between the center and the state, and a good model of that is that you create a 50-50 SPV, where a good model of that is the Delhi Metro. And if you're able to create that and professionally manage it over a long period of time, you've done the trick. And then you will be able to create many more cities in that state. And I think that is the key challenge for India. Because if you don't create that, if you don't do this, then every single existing city of India will become a living slum.
That's what I'm saying. So in a way, what you're saying, that you have to create popular support for this project.
Absolutely.
So it's a politicization of different kind, a positive kind of politicization for these cities.
So I think it's very important that we bring in the political will, both at state and center. We drive it in a professional manner, and we are able to establish some good demonstration models and create competition among states. And you know, there must be learning lessons from each state. So each state must learn from the other state, and they must compete with each other. And I think once these 6 states compete, other states will also get into this bit of competition.
There'll be a crowding in effect, as it were.
No, so
each state is developing its own, or has developed its own creative way of acquiring land. You know, the word genius you used. So in a sense, should one assume that it's already happening, this process?
Well, I find a lot of positive energy in the states. And I find that you know, once you give a good idea, once you are able to sell the big dream and the big vision, states are able to capture it. And we've been able to push this concept we were able to do this in 5 of the 6 states. And now I find a lot of positive energy in Uttar Pradesh as well. So I think all the 6 states are moving forward.
So do you detect also the fact that states are under pressure, the politicians under pressure to deliver services to the people, because this is all about public services at one level, the trunk infrastructure. So there is is there a growing pressure that you see?
I personally feel that if you don't deliver on public services, and if you don't use information technology to deliver public services, governments won't last. Governments will collapse. They won't be voted in. You know, the expectation of the people are very high, and therefore the politicians today need to deliver, and they are in many states delivering. And if you don't, you know, there's a huge discontent coming in because of sheer demographics of your population. I mean, if your population is so young, they are expecting fast and quick results.
And in a sense, Amitabh, this whole slogan that we've seen being repeated in successive elections, Bijli Sadak Pani, is what trunk infrastructure is all about, which you are trying to, you know,
it's very important to realize.
I mean, it's all about Bijli Sadak Pani, you know.
No, it's also very important to realize that, you know, in India today, you know, your agriculture sector is, while it you know, it just accounts for 16% of your GDP. It's growing at rates of 3%. No country in the world has grown on the back of agriculture. Historically, no country in the world has grown on the back of agriculture. And that means that if your aspiration is to grow at rates of 8 to 9%, you have to drive manufacturing.
You have to drive industrial cities, as it were. Now, coming back to the project, now the Japanese are very big on financing this, right? Now, will this create a huge upside in terms of Japan, India investments from Japan? Will it create a new wave of investment from Japan? Because the Japanese have been so far have not been so proactive in big investments into India. Will that be helpful?
So the Japanese, at the level of the prime ministers of the two countries, have put in 4.5 billion for the trunk infrastructure into this project. Now, I think Japan has certain skills. Japan has certain skills in terms of they work as a consortium. 5 companies work together with one as the leader. They're perfectionists in many ways. They're very good in technology. They're very good in transportation. They're very good in their logistic management. And I think we need to utilize, India needs to utilize their expertise, because we get into project execution too fast, too quick, without adequate preparation.
Without adequate planning.
Without adequate planning, without adequate preparation. So there are huge lessons to be learned from both Singapore. There are huge lessons to be learned from Japan. And I think we must learn those lessons.
And you are bringing their expertise.
We are bringing those experiences. And I think the second key issue to my mind is that we must be able to use this project to bring in large-scale investments into India, into the infrastructure. And we must be able to bring in some of the big players.
It has a huge foreign investment potential also.
Because the big game changer will be infrastructure. And we must be able to bring some of the good Japanese...
Give us a ballpark figure of the total investments that this could generate over the next 20 years.
So the project, when you look at the perspective plan, is envisaged to be close to about $90 billion US. It's the biggest project
close to $100 billion US dollars, right?
Yeah, so it's the biggest project conceptualized at and all credit to the political will of and the vision of the government to have planned it to that level, and it's but at the execution level, the challenge is really to break it up into doable concepts, and that is what we've tried to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amitabh Kant, and wish you all the best in executing this project. So that's all we have in this episode of State of the Economy. We'll be back again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.